We're so glad that you have joined us this morning for worship. We come together in this place because we know that we have a great and mighty God who is worthy of our praise. So we're going to start off by singing some songs of worship and praise together. All the words are going to be projected up here on PowerPoint, so we invite you to stand as you're able right now with us and sing along. Here we go.
Bow down and worship Him now. How great
Romans chapter 8, verses 1 and 2 say, "So now there is no condemnation for those who belong to Christ Jesus. Because you belong to him, the power of the life-giving Spirit has freed you from the power of sin that leads to death." We are free. We are free through Christ. He has paid the ultimate sacrifice for us. No matter what we have done, he has taken it to the cross, and we are free. This next song, we've only done it once before, and if you were here on Super Bowl Sunday, we did it during communion, so you may not have been able to hear the whole thing with all the offering going in there and all the change clunking, but it is just it's an exciting song. I love the song so much, the power of what it says. Death was arrested. It says, "Your grace so free washes over me. You have made me new. Now life begins with you. And your endless love pouring down on us, you have made us new. Now life begins with you." He has freed us, and he has loved us, and he has prepared a place for us. So let's join us as we sing this song. Even though it's new, I think you'll catch on quickly, and we just invite you to worship with us in this song. Lost without hope, with no place to begin.
Your love made a way to let mercy come in. When death was arrested and my life began. The ash was redeemed, only beauty remains. My orphan heart was given a name. My mourning grew quiet.
Amen. Let us pray. Dear Lord, thank you so much for the freedom that we find in you. Thank you, Lord, that no matter where we think, how far away we might be from you, that you are always there. And your arms reach to us, Lord. And you surround us, and you love us. And you pour out your grace and your mercy and your love on us. And we can just be free. Thank you, Lord, for creating us to be exactly who you meant us to be. And as children of you, our Heavenly Father, in your name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Amen. Hey, before you find your seats, why don't you turn, find someone whose name you don't know, and introduce yourself this morning. It'd be a great way to start our day. Perfect. This is so bad. All right, fantastic. Good. Welcome, welcome. Well, welcome. Wonderful having all of you here with us. Perfect. If I haven't met you yet, I am Bill Wallace. I'm one of the pastors here at Hope, and we are so glad you're able to join us on this day here at Hope, where we believe a relationship with Jesus Christ can change your life. That is why we do what we do. So yeah, I've got some friends. Ellen and Brent are going to hand out some cards. Would love it if you would take one of those, fill that out, and at the end of our time together, you can turn those in. There's some offering boxes at each of the exits. You'll see these offering boxes there, and you can turn those cards in as well as any offerings that you might have. That blesses us, allows us to do what we are called to do here in this place. Fantastic, good. So as they're handing those out, we've got a few announcements that we're going to highlight as well. First off, yes, not this Wednesday, but the following Wednesday will be Ash Wednesday. And if you grew up in the church, maybe that's something you're familiar with. If not, Ash Wednesday is the start of the season leading up to Easter. It's a season called Lent. And it's just a powerful time to, again, reflect on Easter, which is the greatest day of the year. It's my favorite holiday. It's just a good time to begin a journey that really focuses on what that's all about, what is said to us in Easter, what is given to us in Easter. And so On our Wednesday Night Alive program, which we do every single Wednesday night, we are going to actually just take a little bit of time to focus on that on Ash Wednesday. So you're welcome to join us this Wednesday for dinner as well. It is pizza here this coming Wednesday, so join us for that. But then the following Wednesday as well, even if you haven't come to any other Wednesdays, really encourage you to come and just be a part of that. Again, if you grew up in a church, non-church, now what a great opportunity just to hear a little bit about that message, what's important about it, and what it says to us. So that is coming up. We're looking forward to that. Excellent. And next, yes, it's a couple of things that are in your bulletin, some cool stuff that is coming up. A baptism focus. If you have not yet been baptized, if someone in your family hasn't been baptized, we want to talk to you because the Easter season, again, coming up, is a great time for baptism. It's just a really, really neat time to be able to focus on that. So please set up a time with me so we can talk about baptism. We love baptisms here at Hope. We baptize kids and we baptize adults, and we do infant dedications for kids, and we just want to work with you as a family for that. So if you have not yet been baptized or had a child and you want to talk about that, if you haven't had a child yet, I'm not sure we can help with that. But if you have a child that hasn't been baptized yet, that we can help with. That we can do. So that'd be good. Perfect. All right. I know we've got some youth announcements that Kendall wants to share. Perfect. Thank you, Kendall. And you're volunteering at Housing Hope today, is that right?
Oh, yeah. And after church today, if you're in senior high, we're volunteering at Housing Hope, leading a kids club. So if you want to join us for that, we're leaving in the church van after church, and we'll be back around 2:30.
Perfect. Good. All right. If you're here a couple weeks ago, you know it was Super Bowl Sunday, and on Super Bowl Sunday, we do the best offering of the year. We have these two giant soup pots that are right up in the front, and then all of you pour lots and lots of coins into them and a few other things as well. And then this year, we were so fortunate that Chris Price broke his foot and had nothing to do, so he rolled all the coins for us. Thank you, Chris. We greatly appreciate it. Yay. And we know exactly how much was raised. So yeah, again, the way this works, all the money that was raised, we give to one of the local food ministries. This year, we are supporting the community meal in Lake Stevens. They're super excited about that. Along with that, Chris found some additional coins. He found some really cool ones, and we had a few leftovers as well. And so I've got this huge bag of fancy, cool foreign coins and casino tokens and Chuck E. Cheese tokens, which, just to be clear, are more valuable than the casino tokens, right? That's kind of how that goes. And then all of you were given a chance last week to guess how much you thought was raised. So you all put those on the back of your cards. Some of you did a really, really good job of guessing. Some of you did not, but that's all right. We had people, a couple of folks who aren't here. Chuck Benson did a really good job. He guessed really, really close. Where the lash was. The Lashwas, they did this really well. They did this good. They had all 4 Lashwa members with their own guess on the back. So I'm able to kind of judge you guys on how you did. Callie, you were the closest. You did really good, Callie. Nice job. You weren't quite the closest, but for your family, you were really, really close. Jonathan Frame right here was awfully close. Very good, very good. You're about $19 away, but someone was within $7. Sherry Goodwin guessed $847, and the grand total was $854.34. How about that, right? So cool. So a check for $854.34 is going to be given to the community meal, and they are super excited about that. Thank you again to all of you. It really is a shame that the Super Bowl only happens once a year, because that is the best offering of the year. It's so much fun, and we will do it again next year. All right, one last thing we want to do today. Every now and then we get a chance to welcome some new staff, and you guys get a chance to get to know them a little bit. We have been very, very blessed by our own Janae Roebuck to be in our office staff, and she got stolen away by the school district, and we're fine with that. That's totally fine. But that allowed us to be able to bring on someone new as well. And for those of you that haven't got a chance to meet her yet, we wanted to introduce you to Laura. Come on up, Laura. Is this live? If I can get that live, that would be awesome. I'm not sure. It's not live yet. Perfect, that's all right. We'll just stand up here awkwardly until... That'll be good. Perfect. Very good. Tim, can we get that one? Sorry, I didn't warn you about that. Perfect. All right. So first off, for those of you that don't know, go ahead and introduce yourself. Keep talking. It'll happen. Talk louder.
Hello. No, it's not working. Here, I'll just give it to you.
Check.
Oh, now it's working. Now that he does it, it works.
I know.
It's working now. Can you all hear me okay?
It's our hazing process for you. All right, good. So tell us who you are, Laura.
I would like to pray Jean, if that's
Oh, sure.
How many of you read the weekly email? Can you raise your hand? Perfect. This is going to be so fun. Okay. You can tell me where I was last August.
Ooh.
No, not quite.
Good guess.
No, close. That's right. I was in both Mexico and Guatemala. I took a trip. I flew from Vancouver to Mexico to Guatemala, and then another plane to Guatemala. Lots of traveling. Let's see.
And what was that for?
It was for a service trip. I helped install stoves in a little tiny village that I cannot pronounce the name of. So I'm not even going to try.
Excellent. Good.
Does
Good.
anybody know where I was from?
Ooh. This is a good one. This is a tough one. I remember.
That's right. I was born in California.
Nice.
A town called Oakdale. And then I moved here because my dad said so.
Very good. Anybody here work for Boeing? Anyone? Anyone? Okay. Good. Yeah.
Anybody else who wants random fun facts about me because it's fun? Yes. I have not been to France, not yet. If you want to take me, I'll tell you. Hello, I'm back.
Really big into Rotary volunteering.
I love Rotary. Are there any Rotarians in the room by any chance at all? Okay, that's totally okay.
Yeah.
I'm in Rotaract, which is similar to Rotary. It's specifically 18 to 30. We do volunteering, we do service together. That was actually how I got to be able to go to Guatemala. We did the service trip together, and if you want to ask me about it, I will answer any question you have. I think
Perfect.
that
That's really
sums it up
good.
for
So
now.
yeah, Laura is now in our office. Her hours are Monday through Thursday, 9 to 1. She does some hours outside of that as well. She's just been amazing and fantastic, and we're super thankful she's here. If you haven't had a chance to meet her yet, please come up afterwards. She would love to tell you about how much she loves Star Wars as well, how important it is,
Obviously.
because you can't be on staff here unless you love Star Wars.
Did I mention Star Wars during my interview?
Oh, no.
That was probably why I got hired.
That might have been it, yeah. All right, good. So, yeah, thank you, Laura. We're super excited. All right, good. We're going to dismiss our kids for Kids Club at this time. So, 5th grade and younger, if you want to meet up with your Kids Club leaders in the back, that would be great. then for the rest of us, we're going to be looking at something out of Mark chapter 7. So if you brought your own Bible from home, want to get that out, that would be great. If you have a Bible app on your phone, want to take a look at that, that would also be great. And then otherwise, it'll be up on the screens. There should be a Bible underneath the chair right in front of you as well. Very good. So yeah, Mark is the book that we have been working our way through for these, last several weeks. It's been a lot of fun. And then we are at Mark 7. We've been doing this thing called the narrative lectionary. So our goal is to really try and get the narrative story of the Bible as it just builds on itself. So we started that way back in September. We're now, pretty far into Mark. As we lead up towards Easter, we'll continue with that now, seeing a lot of the stories that lead up to that. As we jump in today, it's kind of a long story, and it's got some odd stuff going on there. The more I thought about it, even this morning, there was stuff that just continued to strike me, and so I think there's some really, really good stuff that we'll be able to focus on here. So Mark chapter 7, verse 1 in the New Living Translation, it reads as this. So one day, some Pharisees and teachers of religious law arrived from Jerusalem to see Jesus. The Pharisees, just as a side note, are that they're the religious leaders of that particular day. There's a couple of different groups of those. The Pharisees generally are kind of seen as the bad guys of the Bible. I often say that when you see the Pharisees show up, you can have Darth Vader's theme music going on in your head as that's going on. They noticed that some of his disciples failed to follow the Jewish ritual of hand washing before eating. The Jews, especially the Pharisees, do not eat until they have poured water over their cupped hands, as required by their ancient traditions. Similarly, they don't eat anything from the market until they immerse their hands in water. This is but one of many traditions that they have clung to, such as their ceremonial washing of cups, pitchers, and kettles. So the Pharisees and teachers of religious law asked him, "Why don't your disciples follow our age-old tradition? They eat without first performing the hand-washing ceremony." Jesus replied, "You hypocrites! Isaiah was right when he prophesied about you, for he wrote, 'These people honor me with their lips, but their hearts are far from me. Their worship is a farce, for they teach man-made ideas as commands from God. For you ignore God's law and substitute your own tradition.'" See, I feel like it's important for me to say the Pharisees are generally considered the bad guys of the Bible because Jesus was really harsh right there, right? Well, he's got a purpose behind that. Verse 9, then he said, "You skillfully sidestep God's law in order to hold on to your own tradition. For instance, Moses gave you this law from God. Honor your father and mother, and anyone who speaks disrespectfully of father or mother must be put to death. But you say it is all right for people to say to their parents, 'Sorry, I can't help you, for I have vowed to give to God what I would have given to you.' In this way, you let them disregard their needy parents, and so you cancel the word of God in order to hand down your own tradition. And this is only one example among many others." Then Jesus called to the crowd to come and hear. "All of you, listen," he said, "and try to understand. It's not what goes into your body that defiles you. You are defiled by what comes from your heart." Then Jesus went into a house to get away from the crowd, and his disciples asked him what he meant by the parable he had just used. "Don't you understand either?" he asked. "Can't you see that the food you put into your body cannot defile you? Food doesn't go into your heart, but only passes through the stomach and then goes into the sewer." By saying this, he declared that every kind of food is acceptable in God's eyes. And then he added, "It is what comes from inside that defiles you. For from within, out of a person's heart, come evil thoughts, and sexual immorality, theft, murder, adultery, greed, wickedness, deceit, lustful desires, envy, slander, pride, and foolishness. All these vile things come from within. They are what defile you." All right. And we shall end our reading right there for now. Excellent. So, if you were here last week, you know, one of the things that we talked about, just kind of tangentially, was the idea of things being clean and unclean, and what's kind of going on there. If you spent time in the Bible before, perhaps that's something that you've heard before, or have heard talked about before, what might be clean and what might be unclean. So that's kind of one of those things that, again, you spend time in church, or particularly if you spend time in the Bible and in Jesus' story, you're going to come across that. We know not everyone here is a Christian. We think that's great. There should be a place to come and ask questions and try and figure all this Jesus stuff out. I think this is one of those times, especially, though, where, honestly, Christians and non-Christians, I think if we're being honest, most of us often have the same questions about this stuff. Right? Well, what does it mean to be clean and unclean? Why is that such a big deal? I hear about that. It doesn't make much sense. Why did it matter? Why was that important to whomever it might be? So there's a really good opportunity with this particular story to dive into that a little bit and see both what it meant for them, and then also why I think it speaks to us in our day-to-day. So we're going to spend a little time kind of reflecting on that, all right? That's kind of what we're going to do. So the idea of there being clean and unclean comes specifically from the Old Testament time. So we're now in the New Testament. We're hearing the story of Jesus. But in the Old Testament, which is the first blank 39 books of the Bible. It's really bad when the pastor forgets how many books in the Bible there are. The first 39 books of the Bible, you've got specifically the Old Testament, and what goes on there is the way that I like to put it, that's telling the story about God's special relationship with a specific group of people. Okay? That's the story of the Old Testament. It's God's special relationship with a specific group of people. And as we work our way through that, we see that time and time again. And we see other people groups interact with that and how all that plays out. But if you're really looking for an overarching theme from what's going on, it's God's special relationship with a specific group of people. That all begins in Genesis chapter 12 and then continues all the way from there on out. And so it's really, really important. And God does that in a lot of specific ways. God wants to have this special relationship with this specific group of people, with the Jews. And he wants to do that in some particular ways so that they might know that they are special and unique and set apart, and that others might know that they are special and unique and set apart. And a lot of that comes with the clean and unclean idea, that there are things that would make a person, quote unquote, clean, and there are things that would make a person unclean. Because those things that make you clean help keep you set apart, help make you different from those around you, help you to act differently, eat differently, worship differently. All those things are kind of going on, wrapped up in that idea of what might make you clean and unclean. So there are these rules, laws, commands that were set up for the people, and then the people needed to follow those because that's what helped show that for them. So again, from a worship standpoint, it talked about how they were supposed to worship, what type of building they were supposed to worship in, how that was supposed to be done. There were some items about clothing, how you were supposed to wear particular clothing that you could or couldn't wear, relationships that you could or couldn't have. And one of those was about food and what you could and couldn't eat. There were foods that you could eat. Those foods were considered clean. And there were foods that you couldn't or shouldn't eat because if you did that, again, then you would be unclean. And if you were unclean, you could become clean. There were, again, specific rules, guidelines on how you did that. You did these things in order to stop being unclean, and now you could be clean again. So this happened time and time again where people did all these things, right? So all this is going on for hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years throughout all of the Old Testament up until the New Testament, up until Jesus' day. Jesus is born, lives, he's doing this public ministry now, somewhere between the age of 30 and 33, he's doing all that. And there are still these groups, particularly the Jewish groups, that would had some differences between them, Pharisees and Sadducees and all that, but all of them had these rules that they wanted you to follow, because they showed, again, how you were in a special relationship with God as a specific group of people. Makes sense in terms of all that's going on? That's all that's going on, all right? So that's what we've got. And I really do think that the reason God gave these rules and did this specifically throughout the Old Testament was primarily for two reasons. I think there are a lot of different reasons why God did that, but I would say primarily for two reasons that's kind of what was going on. Number one, it was just healthy living. Honestly, it was just healthy living in order to do these things that God asked people to do, commanded them to do, really, from a healthy living standpoint. When you look at how they were challenged to prepare their food, some of the food that we're supposed to eat and then couldn't eat, things about blood and staying away from that, in a time long before indoor plumbing and sanitation and all those things like that, we can look back on this now, thousands of years later, and say, wow, actually, that was really smart. That actually really helped people stay healthy and keep things separate when they needed to be separate. And that makes a lot of sense. It's as if God knew what he was doing. You know, that even in a time that, long before we, got moms with hand sanitizers at every soccer game, like you were able to keep things in a pretty remarkable way. It's a stunning thing to look at and see how that happens. So that's a pretty cool thing. But again, too, it was to help them stand out. It was to help them stand out to the world around them because everyone else lived differently. And they did things, again, God's special group of people did things a little differently. They followed this one true God who asked them to worship in this particular way and to eat in this particular way and to wear things in this particular way and to pray in this particular way. And all of that was there to help them say, hey, we don't just do this for ourselves. We don't live for ourselves. This isn't about us. This is about doing something for God. So those two really good reasons. That's why I think God started this. But it had morphed, I think, primarily into a third reason. And I think when we see Jesus interacting through all this, we see this to be true. That it had become to show who was in and who was out. That's what the rules had become. Now we know who's in and who's out. See, these rules had good intentions, I think really good intentions from the outset, but at some point the rules stopped being about being able to be part of God's family and being able to say to others, yes, and therefore you aren't. We are God's special people. We have a special relationship, and you don't. You worship the wrong God. You eat the wrong food. You do the wrong things. You are unclean. You are unsaved. You are a pagan. You might as well be from Canada. Oh my gosh, you're just so bad. You're out. And we're in. If anybody's from Canada, I should just kidding. It was just a little joke. It was just a... But that's what was going on, right? That's what was going on from that standpoint. It wasn't about washing hands anymore. It certainly wasn't about cleanliness. It was about washing hands and other people seeing that you were washing hands. Ooh, did you see that I washed my hands the appropriate way before I began and you didn't? Oh, did you see that I did the proper cup ceremony before we began and you didn't? I'm in. And you are out. That's what was going on when Jesus shows up hundreds of years later and he sees what this has become. And I can't imagine how frustrating that must have been for him. Because again, from a Trinity standpoint, Jesus with God had been the one to give the rules. So Jesus is seeing this perversion of something that he had started and that he knew was good and had great purpose for what it was. And he shows up and he sees all of these people just doing it for show, or even worse, to show others that they don't belong. So Jesus changes the rules, which you can do if you made the rules in the first place. But he changes the rules. He does that time and time again as we go throughout the Bible. That's one of those things that, again, I understand the frustration of the people when Jesus would show up. And again, he was this good teacher and doing these miracles, and people would be like, wow, there's got to be something different about this. And then Jesus would say, yeah, this thing that you've been doing for hundreds of years, now I say to you, do it this way. that had to have been maddening for people who were rule followers, who couldn't figure out why Jesus could do all of these really good things and then change their rules on them. But Jesus did that. He shows up and he says, look, all right, now it's not about following the rules. Now you're going to follow me. And there's still rules, but when you follow those rules, it's to stand out to the world in a different way. We're going to want you to stand out in a different way so that they see in you that there is love and there's hope and there's forgiveness for them as well. That it's not about having a special relationship with a specific group of people. No, that it's about a special relationship for everybody. And everybody gets to be a part of this. And we're going to change the rules so that people see that and see how you guys stand out, and then they're going to find out, wait, I can have that too? And Jesus says, yes, that's it. I'm going to ask you to follow these rules and do these things in order that you do stand out, so that you can draw people in. That's what Jesus started off with when he changed the rules. And then, I feel like somewhere along the line, we Christians, we changed them. And we changed the rules to once again show who is in and who is out, who is right and who is wrong. Now, I can't necessarily speak for the Jewish rules. I can, however, speak for the Christian rules, because I have been a Christian all my life. For those of you that don't necessarily know my story is that I was born into a Christian family. My dad was a Christian pastor. I ended up dating and marrying a Christian pastor's daughter as well. We got married. I am now a Christian pastor. There has just been no part of my life where I have not been part of the Christian world, and so I speak church. And if you don't speak church, you don't understand. We have our own special language. And we do, in fact, have our own special rules. And the challenge, though, is that the rules seem to shift wherever you might be. For instance, I have been in churches where men needed to have their hair short and women needed to have their hair covered. Any of you been in that church before? You're missing out. And most of you are breaking the rules right now. Just saying. Kristen, you're okay. You're good. You've got your... Not it. That's it. My oldest son, Peyton, has hair longer than my wife's now. You couldn't go to that church. That's it. So there's that church. I have been at churches where you could have a wedding and a wedding reception at that church, but that wedding reception could not have dancing. Because if there were dancing, well, there's a highway to hell. Perhaps you've heard of that, and that's paved right to there. For me, I thought by far the time that I was most challenged by this, trying to figure this out, was when Sarah and I were in Mexico. When we served down in Mexico, we served as missionaries down there for about a year and a half. And we had just a blessed time. It was a wonderful time. And we worked in kind of two different areas. We worked in Mexico City, and then we worked in this rural part of Mexico, the Mazahua region. And that's where we're actually going to go visit here this July. And so in the Mazahua region, we worked at a native evangelical mission called Mission Mazahua. And while we were there, for a variety of reasons, we worked with these great, wonderful people, evangelicals. It was absolutely not at all okay to drink alcohol. No one drank alcohol there at all, not even a little bit. That was just part of the reality of doing mission and ministry there. And so that's where we were, Monday through Friday. Made sense. That was totally fine with us. We did that. And then I also worked in Mexico City. And in Mexico City, there was one Lutheran, kind of a combined Lutheran church that had expats, which is a lot of business people from the United States that are down in Mexico City working in particular businesses down there. and it was a combined, actually, Mexican-English thing. It was such a weird church in terms of everything that was going on there. And so then I worked there as well as the pastor. And I kid you not, the very first council meeting that we ever had at that particular church, we're at Tom's house. He opened it up. We got ready for the council meeting, and he brought out tequila shots for us to all begin for the council meeting. And that's the thing about the Christian rules. If you speak church, you know that the rules are different everywhere you go. It's maddening. You can go to one church, and alcohol in moderation, of course, is okay, and go to another church where it shows that, hey, you are not saved. You can go to one church where there's a dress code. And you can go to our church, and there's a dress code. And if you've ever been here on a Seahawks Sunday, you know what that dress code is. Right? Dancing? I'm a choreographer. I mean, those of you that don't dance, I worry about your salvation. It's so hard because the rules change all the time, and often we use them to show who's in and who's out. That's why we have them still. We're the good Christians because we follow these rules. Well, the rules listed somewhere? No, they're just in our pastor's head. But, he's been able to share them with us, and so we do the right thing. And we're in and you're out. And I just keep thinking if Jesus were to show up again today, with all the rules that he had given us, and he would do the same thing that he did 2,000 years ago. And he'd just say, you're missing the point. You're missing the point. It's not about the rules. It's about what's in your heart. It's about what's in your heart. That's what comes out of you. That's what matters. That's what the world needs to see. And just a side note on this, it is interesting. Jesus kind of goes negative here. He says things that come out of your heart, and he lists a number of negative things that can do that. When you go through the Bible, you see Jesus, again, can be really positive and can be really negative, really challenging and negative. You know the times when he's the most negative and challenging? It's when he's talking to insiders. When he gets up in our faces, those of us who are Christians, and he says, hey. You guys have one job, and that's tell the outsiders that they're loved, that they are welcome, and that they are forgiven, and that they should be inside here with you, not to keep them out. That's not how this goes. We are called to live differently. Yes, absolutely. We're called to live differently than the world around us. But we're called to do it in a way that people want to be part of it. And not to use the rules or whatever we might feel to keep things out. I thought about this, and maybe this is just because I'm a movie guy or not, but those of you that might have watched the Oscars last week or two ago, one of the people that won was Joaquin Phoenix, and he won for The Joker, which I'll just be honest is a movie I didn't see and wasn't terribly excited to see. But I watched the Oscars, and Joaquin gave a speech at the end that was incredibly heartfelt and passionate, and he believed firmly and strongly in what he was sharing. And as I listened to it, it just came across to me as so condescending. It was hard, because he believed everything that he was saying about how we should live. We should live this way because it's better for the world, and it's better for the environment, and it's better for this. And I heard all of that, and I just thought to myself, man, I bet this is what non-Christians hear from Christians all the time. This is how we should do things because it's better, and it's better, and it's better, and it's better. And don't you want to be part of that? And yeah, Joaquin got done. And again, I don't think he was trying to be condescending. I really do. I believe he was trying to share from his heart. But just the way that it came out, I was like, oh, is that what people hear from me? Is that what people hear from us? When we're so passionate about the rules, because we know it's what God is calling us to do. But somehow instead it comes across as a big slap in the face. And you outsiders, you just don't get it. Been really struggling with this, last couple of weeks. How do we, those of us who consider ourselves Christians, not everyone here, for those of us who do, how do we live by the rules and share the rules that people actually want to be part of them? I don't know that we got that figured out, but it's a good challenge in the days and weeks ahead. Would you pray with me? God, thanks that, again, your Son Jesus Christ broke the rules for us, saved us, redeemed us, loved us, in spite of the fact that we certainly don't deserve it, haven't earned it. Pray that we might be able to just hear that changes us, and that, if nothing else, that is a message that we're able to share. There are a lot of people that have been hurt by the rules of faith, confused. I pray that, we might do our part, just some small way, of being able to break the rules when we need to, use the rules to show love when we can. More than anything, tell a whole lot of people that feel like outsiders that there is a place for them. In your holy name we pray. Amen.
Amen. So this morning, we're going to ask you guys to join us and sing this last song with us. I hope that this is the way that we can invite other people into this community, invite people to know more about Jesus, that we might sing out the joy that we have like an old church choir. We are going to ask you guys to clap your hands and stomp your feet with us this morning as we sing this song, because I think that if we share what we know, the joy of the Lord, with those outside of this building, that is what they need to know. They need to know that we just have this amazing love and this joy that comes from the Lord and that comes from Him alone, and that's what we need to share with them. So would you please stand and join us as we sing this last song together, Old Church Choir. All right. Just 1 second. I'm just gonna like mime it here. Really cool. Like, yes, so good. Piano. Got any? Haha. Okay. There. Now we have a note. All right. Here we go. All right. Old church choir. Here we go. 1, 2, 3. There's revival and it's spreading like a wildfire in my heart. Sunday morning, hallelujah, and it's lasting all week long. Can you hear it? Can you feel it? It's the rhythm of the gospel song. Once you choose it, you can't lose it.
clapping is against the rules in some churches. Go ahead and have a seat. Go ahead and have a seat. That's all right. Not here. The rules at Hope are that it should be noisy. We want kids noisy in church. We want you guys noisy in church. That's good stuff. All right. Thank you so much, for joining us and being a part of this. If you didn't get a chance to check out all the cool foreign coins and everything up here, do that. If you're a coin collector, I think that's just so fun, so interesting stuff as we do that. And then we'll see you back here next week as well. I pray that this week, you really find someone that you're able to show some love and care and grace to. There's someone that you know has been beaten down by the rules. If you can be that person that does things a little differently this week, that would be just an awesome blessing. So I hope you're able to do that. If you got those cards filled out, you can turn those in as well. And we close our worship service with a reminder of who it is we are, what we're all about. Don't just go to church. Amen. Amen.